Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with Chicken Lazone. That's right, this creamy Cajun-spiced chicken dish has to be one of the easiest recipes we've ever posted. Okay, there's no slicing, there's no dicing, or any actual prep at all. But despite being so simple, this really is incredibly delicious and seems kind of fancy. Plus, never underestimate the power of a fun-to-say recipe name. So with that, let's go ahead and get started by mixing up our Cajun spice blend, which for me is going to include some smoked paprika or regular paprika. We will also do some chili powder, plus to warm things up, a little bit of cayenne, and then we'll finish up with some freshly ground black pepper, as well as some onion powder, and then last but not least some garlic powder. And once everything's in there, we'll take a spoon and give this a mix. And no, we did not forget the salt. Since after this is mixed, we're going to apply that directly to our boneless, skinless chicken breasts, which I have 4 of right here. And what we'll do is salt this generously on both sides before we apply our spice blend. And the reason I prefer this technique is because we can see and feel exactly how much salt's getting onto the meat. Whereas if we mix it into the spice blend, sometimes it's harder to control. So I prefer to season the chicken like this first, and then once sufficiently salted, we can go ahead and apply our spices to both sides. But we are only going to use about half the amount we mixed up, which is still going to be plenty to give us a generous coating. And then what we'll do is save the other half to use when we make our sauce. And then once our breasts are salted and seasoned, we can start cooking right away. But for something a little more flavorful, I do like to wrap this and pop it in the fridge for a few hours, just to give our chicken a little bit of time to absorb all that goodness. Which if we wanted, we could do as long as overnight. But generally, I think just an hour or 2 is fine. So I did pop mine in the fridge until I was ready to cook. And then once we are, what we'll do is pan fry that on both sides in a little bit of vegetable oil, set over medium-high heat. And you don't have to, but I find a nonstick pan is a little safer bet here. And what we'll do is give that first side about 4 minutes before we go ahead and turn those over. And then we'll give the other side about the same. And contrary to what some folks will tell you, boneless, skinless chicken breasts cook pretty fast. So after about 4 minutes per side, our chicken's going to be almost, but not quite cooked all the way through. Which is perfect, because what we'll do is finish it by simmering it in the sauce that we're just about to make. So what we'll do once that second side has been seared is turn off the heat, and we'll remove that chicken to a plate for a few minutes while we build our sauce. And that will start by dumping the rest of our spices into the pan. And we'll give that a quick stir and let it cook for about 30 seconds, just to sort of wake up those flavors a little bit. And yes, even though the pan was off, it's still very, very hot. So we're only going to cook that for about 30 seconds before we squeeze in the juice of half a lemon, which by the way is not in the original recipe, but I really do think it helps balance the richness of the sauce. And at this point, we can turn our heat back on to medium-high. And we can add our cream. Plus, we'll rinse out the cup we used for that with about 1/3 of a cup of water. And we will add that in as well. And while our sauce comes back to a simmer, we'll take a spoon and we'll give everything a nice stir, making sure we're scraping any caramelized goodness off the bottom of the pan. And we'll check for final seasoning later, but I do like to stir in a pinch of salt now. And then once our sauce is simmering, we can reduce our heat to medium-low, and we will transfer our chicken back in, along with, of course, any accumulated juices. Right, don't forget those. In fact, in New Orleans, where this recipe's from, it is actually illegal to throw those away. Or so I assume. And then all we have to do to finish this shockingly simple recipe is simply simmer these breasts gently in the sauce for a few more minutes per side, or until they're safely cooked through. And how long exactly that's going to take depends on how big your chicken breasts were and how far they cook when you seared both sides. But it's probably going to happen faster than you think, so I would start checking after a few minutes per side. And by the way, if your sauce looks like it's getting too thick as you're doing this, don't be afraid to add a little splash of water or chicken broth. Or cream, I guess, if you want this extra rich. So keep an eye on that and adjust if need be. I mean, you are, after all, the Gandalf of making this as good as Chef Lazone Randolph, who, yes, invented this dish, hence the name. But anyway, once our chicken's cooked long enough, we will reduce our heat to low, and we will toss in some freshly sliced green onions, trying to get those mostly into the sauce. And then you will never guess how we're going to finish this dish. Unless, of course, you've been to New Orleans, in which case it's very easy to guess. And that would be by stirring in some chunks of butter. And what we'll do is use a spoon, along with giving the pan the old shake-a-shake-a. And we will blend that butter in and baste it over our chicken. Oh, and as I do that, I want to tell you about a very interesting optical illusion you're going to see here. All right, as you can see, the sauce is a very beautiful, sort of creamy rust color. But if you let that sit, that vegetable oil that we seared the chicken in will actually come to the surface and give everything a deeper redder color, which disappears as soon as you stir things in. So it's not like a problem, but I did want to call your attention to it, just so you don't think you did anything wrong. But anyway, once our sauce has been buttered and our chicken's been basted, we can turn off the heat, since this is now ready to serve. Although, of course, we really do want to taste for seasoning. And if yours is good, and mine was, we can pull that off the heat and then finish very simply with another scattering of freshly sliced green onions over the top. And that's it, our chicken lazone is ready to enjoy. Oh, and as I grab some tongs to serve one of these chicken breasts up, you will get a great look at what I was just talking about regarding this taking on a beautiful brick red color, which really is gorgeous, but like I said, is kind of a mirage, and we can see that true sauce color below. But anyway, like I said, just give it a stir before you spoon it over, and you'll be fine. And I'm going to do exactly that, and spoon some over this chicken, so I can grab a fork and knife and go in for the official taste. And that, my friends, for something that took such little effort, and like zero prep and no knife work, is so rich and satisfying and intensely delicious that if you're new to cooking, you're going to be shocked you made it. And hopefully you'll think to yourself, maybe I can cook. Well, you know what? You can. And I've always loved the combination of a sort of rich cream sauce that's very aggressively spiced with chili, although that doesn't necessarily mean spicy. Okay, that depends on how spicy your chili powder is and how much cayenne you put in. And obviously everything in this is to taste. But I've always loved that combination of rich and buttery with sharp and spicy. And then that little splash of lemon we added, I think balances everything beautifully. And after a few bites, you will understand why this was such a popular dish at Brennan's, which is the restaurant where Chef Lazone invented this dish. And no, of course they did not serve it plain like this. So let me go ahead and play one up, a little more appropriately, with some scallion butter fettuccine, since according to my sources in New Orleans, this was usually served with pasta. And after saucing and topping that with some more scallions, I went back to eating, enjoying it even more. And as wonderful as that sauce was on these noodles, it would be equally fantastic on rice or potato. So what I suggest is keep making this, serving it on something different each time, until you figure out which one is your favorite. But no matter what you serve this on, this ultra simple, fun to say chicken dish is an incredible thing to eat, which is why I really do hope you give this a try soon. So please follow the links below for the ingredient amounts, a printable written recipe, and much more info as usual. And as always, enjoy.